Hi, so I wanted to see if I could quickly summarize sort of where we got to today in the FMS conversation. Luba, this will probably not be, at least some of this probably won't be utterly obvious to you since you weren't in most of the meeting. And sorry about that, our Wi-Fi here got cut off, so I couldn't bring you back in. The purpose of this presentation is indeed to summarize where we are right now. And what I'm asking is, after you hear this presentation, please feel free to send a reply all on the email to which this presentation is attached, and modify, add, subtract from the presentation. So we're interested, broadly speaking, in the future of the Frontier Market Scouts program. The time frame that I'm interested in is 5 years, 5 to 10 years, really. We've got a short-term issue that we talked about in the meeting about the so-called financial cliff, and that is very real. However, in terms of this conversation, I'd rather not get ourselves too bogged down into a short-term emergency set of actions that may not be particularly great for the long run. So what did we agree is our comparative advantage when it comes to the FMS program writ large? And this is what I heard. I heard that, one, that there is a lot of imitator programs out there. But what we do and what we have that is unique is our existing relationships with networks and organizations wanting interns. We do spend a lot of time and effort on maintaining those and on the whole placement process, but it certainly is something that is unique to us. And then there's the history of the FMS work going back 5 years now at least. And I think the known quality of our FMS trainees when they go out in their placements and actually do work with organizations. My understanding is that we feel that they are, in general, are doing good work, great work perhaps, but it's widely recognized that a place gets value for money out of getting one of our interns and therefore supporting them. Another part of our conversation is really about sort of the opportunity. What's the big opportunity moving forward? What's a new horizon, perhaps, is a way of putting it, or what is it that we can really be aiming for at a strategic level? And I guess what I heard most today was really trying to get at ever more clearly in our own minds and in our alignment between the FMS training that happens run out of Cecil and our academic side is this phrase that you see at the bottom of the square: impact is the bottom line. In other words, FMS isn't about coming and learning to be a scout for successful businesses or potentially successful businesses. FMS isn't about a place where you come to learn to invest socially for impact, but it's a place that we're trying to help others, both our students and non-students, really wrap their head around the many instruments and approaches that are available out there as a package, perhaps, or at least as combinations of tools and approaches that produce impact as the bottom line of business. And as a result, the idea that what I heard was we want to keep pushing ourselves to incorporate in FMS, the FMS training, the full spectrum of impact tools, instruments, and approaches. We mentioned a bunch of them in the meeting: corporate social innovation, corporate social responsibility, impact investing, social entrepreneurship. All of these are part of perhaps a large basket that we can deploy individually or together in different combinations, depending upon context, to achieve impact as a bottom line. So that's what I heard I guess, emerge as a real opportunity in the sort of so what? What does the world need from us? What does the world need from GSIPM, MBA, CECL right now as it relates to the space that FMS occupies? So the conversation then, I've asked the conversation kind of really focus on FMS training and then FMS training sort of as a link in a larger value chain, if I can put it that way. And I was expecting a lot more conversation, I'll say, about changing the FMS curriculum. But what we landed on, and I mean those in the know, seem to agree that really the FMS training isn't that far off base at this point, that we should leave it broadly introductory, not try to focus it in a particular direction, broadly introductory to the broad field of impact. This goes back to the idea of incorporating a full spectrum of impact tools, instruments, and approaches, and that really it's a matter of just tweaking it for moving forward. Parts of this that I think are also really crucial. We do need to figure out how to drive down our own internal costs of that training. I think that's pretty clear. What I'm not myself totally clear on is how much, how long, how far we have to drive those costs down. But it seems a bit of an imperative. Because for the moment it's not paying for its full costs. It may not have to. The training may not have to pay for its full costs, but there is an imbalance right now that we need to get a handle on. There's also this idea of the FMS training itself, and this sort of springs us into the future to some extent. Of the training is the training, and it's important and essential. But the training in and of itself as a training isn't what we should be happy with. That's not what we should settle for. And we haven't up to right now. I'm not saying that we have settled for that. But we need to, what I heard is thinking ever more about the FMS training, that 2-week event, as an attractor for additional resource streams, if I can put it that way. A funnel for upselling, which is related to the idea of that attractor. Thinking about that training, continuing to think about that training as a brand and reputation builder. In other words, just because that someone comes that does nothing with us other than a 2-week FMS training is perfectly fine. That's part of what we want or need in terms of building our larger brand. And we do need to continue to build our larger brand, I heard in the conversation. We can be happy with where we are right now as it relates to FMS and where it's gone over the last 5 years. But we really need to continue moving into an ever greater clarity on our brand as it relates to, I think, as impact as the bottom line, and aligning it with the global impact management strategy of the MBA program and of the joint degree programs. So where did we go with this? I asked for sort of add-on or revenue generating ideas that go beyond simply the FMS training and the FMS placement. And my idea here was maybe if we think about FMS not as a standalone training that needs to subsist on its own and pay for itself, if we rather think of a cluster of products, all of which have resource streams, all of which are bringing in income, that we could change our unit of analysis and think about FMS not as a training and whether the training is a return on the investment or covering its costs, but whether the much broader array and portfolio of products is actually of benefit and covering its cost, or I would really love it if we could actually get additional resources coming into this place that were of substantial level and not just constantly breaking even. In other words, I'm not content with breaking even as our goal. I just think we need to get beyond that and challenge ourselves to think of substantial profit streams. And so one of the things that we talked about was upselling, FMS training, upselling to future vertical academic courses, both face-to-face and hybrid. And what this meant was basically taking students, on the one hand, taking students who had gone through the introductory FMS training and having courses available to them perhaps in the following spring. They take it in J-term and in the spring. Courses designed specifically around areas of interest that they have where they dive much more deeply into a particular tool, a particular instrument, a particular approach, or just a particular context of some sort, or a particular problem. It could be any of the above. And we'd have to carefully align our professors' teaching, think about use of adjuncts, and so on and so forth. The other idea here, though, would be that kind of upselling to future vertical courses, if we can combine it with hybrid distance forms of learning. In other words, a non-student taking an FMS training who would go back home, not be placed in the field, and be able to take that vertical course from a distance for a fee, and thinking about where that might take us in terms of resource flows, as well as brand building, as well as just creating more people out there in the world able to make the kinds of impacts that we hope they can. So that was sort of one idea of upselling trainees into future academic courses, as well as academic courses that could be easily accessible by non-students, not require coming here for a full semester, et cetera, et cetera. We also had the idea about doing some more structured thinking about how graduates of the FMS training might become future clients for IBP or similar capstone engagement by MIS. And right now we ask clients of IBP to contribute a fee in order to support faculty and students, student research in IBP. It is a form of resource acquisition that we have, and we could think about getting ever more deliberate about that. And perhaps if we get really, really good, 7 years from now, charge a lot more for those things. We also talked about the idea of moving into what we called immersive executive education, or concierge executive education. This would be moving after FMS training, not into a placement per se, the way we currently do it, but perhaps moving into an immersive experience associated with a specific context and a specific organization, specific geography, a specific problem set, something that would be longer term in nature. It wouldn't be something necessarily that you can solve in 3 months or 6 months. And we would deliberately position this in the market as not executive education, so to speak. This is an immersive experience for executives, high senior managers, and so on and so forth. But it would take them out and put them into the soup, out into the field, wherever that may be, to try to solve some impact as bottom line kind of question, and accompanied by a Ms. Prof of some sort, and that also could be, if you think about it as a longer term engagement, imagine the executives come back to their home of record and back to their office, and they're still trying to solve the problem. They could perhaps contract one of our student consulting groups to help them continue their thinking, their analysis, their decision making back home. This could also be an opportunity for continuous learning on demand by fee. In other words, the kind of thing that we do right now in the GBI. A potential executive who's gone through our concierge education program would have a privileged access to call up UA, for example, or call up Jeff Langholtz, or call up Luba and say, I need an hour of your time. And we'd pay them, and we'd bill them for that. They would pay for that, or something along those lines. So if you look at all of this, we suddenly open up our income streams well beyond just simply getting training fees and placement fees. But those don't go away either. Those would be part of the mix, and regular FMS placement might indeed lead also to future vertical resource streams from a particular FMS grad, particularly if they can do it hybrid, or perhaps they actually decide to come here to MIS to continue and get a full MBA. I know that would be rare at this point, but it would be possible. We also see regular FMS placement also perhaps leading to the alums of that program coming back and with their new organizations, their future career, and coming back to MIS for help through IBP or similar capstone engagements. And the same thing here, graduates, alums of the placement program could indeed be feeders for a concierge immersive executive education program. That's where we ended our conversation, and I'll be really interested to hear your additions, subtractions, where did I miss something, and so on and so forth in your emails. Thanks.